Hello, I'm Mr. Bobo, and today we investigate the RMS Titanic. Everyone knows the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank. But what if that's not the full story? What if the real tragedy wasn't just the ice, but a chain of ignored warnings, fatal mistakes, and hidden truths? The RMS Titanic, proudly called unsinkable, sailing toward an unknown fate. It was a floating symbol of power, ambition, and human pride, built to impress the world and prove nothing could bring it down. The most luxurious ship of its time. On board were some of the wealthiest people in the world, alongside hundreds of immigrants chasing a new life. Different worlds on the same ship. But on April 14, 1912, something went terribly wrong. And the truth, it's far more disturbing than you think. Because the danger wasn't sudden, it had been building all along, and by the time reality set in, it was already too late. That night, the RMS Titanic wasn't alone. Nearby ships were sending repeated iceberg warnings. Earlier that day, the Bobo radioed a message warning of a massive ice field ahead. The Californians sent multiple warnings as well. Other ships reported towering icebergs in the dark, and even growlers of small, low-floating ice nearly invisible, hard to spot, and even harder to avoid. In total, at least 6 warnings reached the Titanic. Some were acknowledged, but many were never delivered to the bridge in time. Why? 6 chances to slow down and hear the warnings carried across the cold ocean, and 6 chances to change course, to turn away from the unseen threat ahead. Because wireless communication was still new, operators were busy sending passenger messages, and not every warning was treated as urgent. For them, those messages mattered more in the moment, and slowly, the warnings became background noise. One message clearly warned a heavy pack ice directly in your path. But the ship kept going, at full speed. Why? Because slowing down meant arriving late. And for the world's most luxurious ship, image mattered more than caution. With no moonlight, and waters so calm they reflected nothing, the icebergs became nearly impossible to see. The conditions couldn't have been worse. On the night of April 14, 1912, the Titanic was steaming at near maximum speed, about 22 knots through a known ice field toward hidden danger. In icy waters, at night, with limited visibility. That's like driving a car at top speed, blindfolded, unaware of what lay ahead. Despite the warnings, the danger was underestimated, the number of icebergs misjudged. Then, at around 11:40 p.m., the iceberg was finally spotted. But when it was finally spotted, it was already too late. There was no time to slow down, and no way to turn in time. The lookout rang the bell, 3 sharp strikes breaking the stillness, a warning no one could ignore anymore. On the bridge, orders came without hesitation, hard to starboard, as the engines roared into reverse, in a desperate attempt to turn away. The crew had less than 40 seconds to react, and in that brief moment, everything changed. The iceberg didn't smash the Titanic open. It didn't rip a giant hole. Instead, it brushed along the side of the ship. It seemed like a glancing blow, but beneath the surface, steel plates buckled, rivets tore free, and seams began to open. And then water started coming in, not from a single point, but spreading across multiple compartments, and it wasn't stopping. Most people think the iceberg tore a massive hole in the ship. It didn't. Instead, it caused a series of small punctures along the hull, individually survivable, but together, deadly. The Titanic was designed to stay afloat with 4 flooded compartments. That night, 6 were breached. The ship's fate was sealed within minutes. One by one, water spilled from compartment to compartment, like a slow chain reaction, and there was nothing to stop it. The ship sank quickly, and many lost their lives. Panic spread across the decks as the freezing ocean closed in. Titanic had lifeboats, but not enough. Even worse, many lifeboats were launched half empty. But why did this happen when everything they needed to survive was already there? Because of confusion, poor training, and disbelief. And in those critical moments, hesitation cost lives. Passengers didn't believe the ship could sink. Many stood frozen in disbelief. Crew members hesitated, unsure of what to do next. And with every passing second, precious time slipped away. Over 1,500 people were left behind in the cold darkness of the Atlantic. Not everyone aboard survived, but survival wasn't random. It followed patterns. Some had advantages others never did. First-class passengers had a much higher chance of survival. Why? Because of faster access to information. And they were the priority members who had better access to lifeboats during the emergency. Women and children were given priority, but even that rule wasn't followed perfectly, as panic and fear spread among the passengers. Many lifeboats left half empty, while hundreds still waited on deck, hoping for another chance. Third-class passengers faced the worst conditions. Barriers, confusion, and delays cost precious time, leaving many trapped below deck. Because of locked gates, language barriers, and confusion, many struggled to reach the deck, and by then, it was already too late. In the end, around 700 people survived, while over 1,500 were left behind. Survival wasn't just luck, it was timing, access, and the decisions made in that moment. And for those who lived, the memory of that night never truly left them forever. The RMS Titanic didn't just sink because of an iceberg. It was more than that. The disaster unfolded through a chain of unfortunate events. It didn't sink because of one mistake. It sank because of ignored warnings, overconfidence, and human error. This wasn't a disaster of nature alone, but one shaped by human decisions as errors and misjudgments turned tragedy inevitable. The iceberg was only the trigger. The real cause was everything that happened before it. Warnings ignored and precautions skipped worse than the outcome. And maybe that's the part history doesn't talk about enough. The warnings were there, but they were never truly heard. And in the end, silence was all that remained. A tragedy written long before the collision, and remembered long after the night was over. And in the end, the ocean didn't just take a ship. It took thousands of stories, dreams, and futures into silence. A silence that still echoes today, not loud, but deeply felt. In every wave that passes above, and every shadow beneath the sea, the memory remains, quietly waiting, hidden in the silence, lost in the depths of time. A story the ocean refuses to forget. History isn't just about what happened, it's about why it happened. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. This is Mr. Bobo, signing off. I'll see you in the next one.